Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the District 121 debate. My name is Lee Munsell. I'm the editor-in-chief of the San Antonio Report, and this is our first civic engagement event for 2024, so we're so thrilled to have you all here in the audience and also watching the virtual stream of this debate. I assume you all will be well behaved today, but I do have to say that it's our responsibility to use the hour wisely, and so disruptions will not be tolerated or allowed. So today's District 121 debate will be moderated by an excellent political journalist. Andrea Drush is the politics and government reporter for the San Antonio Report, and she has also covered politics for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, National Journal, and Politico. I'm going to hand this over to her in just a moment, but I did want to tell you a little bit about our coverage as a nonprofit newsroom in San Antonio. It is an election year, so we are working right now on getting an election newsletter together that will be starting and launching in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. We also will continue to cover government and politics in San Antonio, and thank you so much for participating in our work tonight. So I'm handing it over to Andrea.
Thanks so much for being here tonight. I'm Andrea Drush. I cover local government and politics for the San Antonio Report, and I'm so excited to kick off this discussion about one of the most interesting House races in the map this year. House District 121 includes North Central San Antonio, some parts of unincorporated Bexar County, as well as Alamo Heights, Olmsted Park, and Terrell Hills. Many of you likely remember this as former Speaker Joe Strauss's district, and if you've been paying any attention at all to local politics this year, then you know that this House race has drawn the interest of an array of political power players, from Governor Greg Abbott to Attorney General Ken Paxton to House Speaker Dave Phelan to some well-heeled outside groups. The winner of the March 5th Republican primary will face off in this year's November general election against the winner of the Democratic primary. And for those of you wondering about the political lean of this House District 121 after redistricting, Trump would have carried the overall district by 2.3% in 2020. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our candidates to the stage. First up, we have Representative Steve Allison. Steve Allison is a business attorney who's seeking a fourth term in the House, where he serves on the Appropriations, Public Education, Local and Consent Calendars, and Select Committee on Youth, Health, and Safety. I believe he and his wife are also proud TCU alumni. Go Frogs. Next up, we have Marc LaHood. Mr. LaHood is a criminal defense attorney. He ran unsuccessfully for the Bexar County District Attorney seat in 2022, losing to incumbent Democrat Joe Gonzalez. This is LaHood's second San Antonio Report debate, so we appreciate you coming out again tonight. There's a third Republican in this race, Physician's Assistant Michael Champion, who wasn't able to join us tonight. We're going to start with a 1 minute 30 second opening statement by each candidate, and from there, when the moderator asks a question, you'll have 1 minute to follow up, and if there's a rebuttal, you'll also get a 1 minute follow up at my discretion. One quick note: this debate is exactly 1 hour, so any disruptions from the crowd is going to take away from their time to make their case, and also you will get booted by our publisher. So we're going to jump right in with a question about one of the biggest topics right now from the last legislative session, and one of the reasons. Oh, sorry. No. First, we did a coin toss earlier, and we Representative Allison won the coin toss and elected to go first in the opening.
Thank you. This is an election based on background, based on experience, based on involvement, based on qualifications, and most importantly, based on demonstrated results and demonstrated leadership. I've been fortunate to hit the ground running when I hit the legislature 6 years ago because of that involvement, because of that background. And as a result, I picked up a tremendous amount of support and endorsements. Virtually every substantive group in the state that endorses and provides support has endorsed me or supported me, from business to healthcare to real estate to oil and gas to law enforcement. And I'm proud of that. Rather think that well-deserved time spent to earn that. So I ask that you watch and listen and determine who has the best grasp of the actual issues. And that's plural. We have a multitude of issues facing us. Who has the best grasp of those issues? Who has the background to deal with those issues effectively and with leadership? And I think you'll find, based on that background, based on my record, and I've already demonstrated, established record of involvement in this community, various capacities, from school board on. And I think you'll find that I'm the one that needs to continue to lead this district and be your representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LaHood?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Marc, and I have a real simple philosophy. But our elected officials should say what they plan on doing. They should do what they say. Don't tell us what we want to hear. And if we don't get the delivered results, we replace them. I have 3 priorities when I get to the House. First and foremost, and we all know this, the border is out of control. In 4 years ago, we had the lowest border crossings. Now we have unprecedented. I plan on making real, substantive changes, whether it's helping fund our border, whether it's creating a border task force, whether it's creating legislation that actually has real bite to it. That's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is voter integrity. Sorry, I had allergies. I think we all know that election fraud got reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor. We need to make it more serious, not less serious. Lastly, I believe in freedom. I'm unashamedly pro-school choice. I believe competition is the driving force. I believe in freedom, that indoctrination doesn't belong in our schools. Those are the platforms I plan on pushing forward. I am a criminal defense attorney. I have practiced in almost 60 different counties. And I have the track record of walking in to ugly waters and without folding my principles, getting the job done. I'm not ashamed to fight. I'm not ashamed of what I believe, and I will not fold. I am humbly asking for your vote. Thank you.
I think you all know where we're headed from here. A question about one of the biggest topics from the last legislative session, and one of the reasons that this race is even happening in the first place, which is public education. Last session, Governor Greg Abbott made clear that he wanted the state to implement a school voucher program and was willing to hold other aspects of the budget hostage to get it. Representative Allison, you previously served as the Alamo Heights ISD, as president of the Alamo Heights ISD Board of Trustees, and you were one of the 21 Republicans who joined Democrats in stopping a voucher program late last year. Mr. LaHood, you cited this as one of the main reasons you're running. Representative Allison, can you start us off by explaining your vote and what in your experience makes you think that a voucher program is a bad idea?
Sure. I have a long history of promoting and supporting choice opportunities. And we have a multitude of choice opportunities, but there's a stark difference, totally different animal when you move from school choice to private school voucher program. We have tremendous choice opportunities right here. We're blessed. From charter schools, we have a tremendous charter school network here and throughout the state. We have magnet programs. We have specialized programs, non-disciplinary alternative programs, workforce development, STEM programs. And what is really important, I believe, is each of the districts within House District 121, with the exception of Alamo Heights, they're just too small. But Northeast, Judson, San Antonio, and Comal all have policies where you can transfer freely within the district. If you're in a first grade program at one particular campus and you don't like the teacher, you don't like the environment, you don't like the curriculum, whatever, you can freely transfer to any other first grade campus in the district. And in Northeast, thousands of students are doing that, exercising that choice. When you turn to a private school voucher program, one, that's not conservative. It's not Republican, if that matters. But an entitlement program like that discriminates, picks just on a select few, I can't abide by that. I don't think that we want that. I don't think Texas wants that. That's why it's so popular within the totality of District 121 and the state.
Okay, that's time. Sorry. We're going to give you maybe 20 seconds to finish that thought up.
And that's why the detriment's gonna be to public education. That's where that money needs to go. The bill that the government proposed calls for $500 million in year one. It quickly increases to at least $2 billion. That money is much better spent where we're constitutionally mandated to provide a free and open public education system. And that's why I voted like I did against private school vouchers.
Mr. LaHood, let's give you 2 minutes on this one. This one seems important.
Thank you.
Explain your position on this.
I humbly believe that school choice is about our children. And it's about who actually has the power and the ability to make the very best decision for our children. I believe ESAs or private schools or magnet schools or homeschooling is taken away from what the real issue is. Does the government make the final say, or do we? And what happens when our children are in an environment that they don't succeed? Here's what no one wants to talk about. Fact 121, our district. The TEA, the Texas Education Agency, released in the last year and a half ago, over 57%, 55% to be exact, of our children between kindergarten to senior year of high school are below the standard they should be in math. Over 35% are below their reading level. That's a fact. School choice is about this. It's about when you're not able to thrive, for whatever reason, whether your child's being bullied, whether your child has a learning disability, whether you want to homeschool, whatever it is, it's about being able to provide the very best opportunity that you can. The reality is this, it's not a myth. 31 states have passed some form of school choice. Over 10 states have passed a full ESA system. The most notable are Florida and Arizona. Arizona's done it for over 10 years. And guess what the top 2 states are? It ain't Texas. We're not even top 10. It's Arizona and Florida. School choice is about not school boards, not about superintendents. It's about our children. There's nothing more important than that, and making sure that they have the tools to succeed.
As a follow-up to that, so you'll get 1 minute, Mr. LaHood, proponents of creating a voucher program made teacher pay raises and public school funding dependent on its passage this year. That meant they left the session without either of those things. How would you justify that outcome to parents of public school students or public school teachers?
Well, first and foremost, they should have been separate. But it's a double-edged sword. I mean, how do you justify shooting down the right to do what's best for your child, holding that hostage in reverse? I mean, the reality is this. Our teachers are, in my humble opinion, the first line of defense. I think they're as important as our first responders. I mean, that's the building blocks of our civilization. And I don't know if I already said this or not, but the children of today, it's not a myth, they're the voters of tomorrow, and they're the leaders of tomorrow. And so we do need to compensate teachers, but that's how school choice works. Call me an old school capitalist. Competition creates a better product, a better service, and a better price. And when you put that into education, it means you pay teachers what they're worth, you get a better quality of education pool where they can work, and most importantly, you get a better outcome when it comes to our children's education.
Representative Allison, also a 1 minute follow-up. You tried to separate the public school funding from the voucher program and you were shot down. Do you believe that you did the right thing on this vote, even if it cost you the seat?
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to just comment a little bit further. You know, Mr. Hood mentioned Arizona. Arizona is a prime example of why the program doesn't work. Arizona is now in a total budget deficit because of the voucher program. It was ill-conceived, just like ours is. And if we talk about competition, competition has to have a level playing field. Private schools don't have the same accountability standards that our public schools do. The teachers aren't required to be certified. There's no testing requirements. There's no curriculum requirements like we have in the public schools. The private schools select the students. They choose the students, not the other way around. So what we have here is ideal for a choice situation and protects the parents and gives them the exact opportunities to provide for their children. I've spoken to a number of groups this size, smaller, some larger, and I've asked, all right, if you or a friend were offered $8,000 or $10,500 today, which are the two amounts discussed in the two bills
That's time. We'll give you 20 seconds.
where would you go? Where would you go? I haven't had one response saying, oh, I'd go to X school, because they don't exist.
Thank you. So moving on to property taxes, Bexar County and its surrounding areas in the Hill Country are exploding in growth, and with that growth comes a rise in property taxes for people who can afford them and those who can't. Last year, the legislature passed and voters approved Proposition 4, which cut property taxes for Texas homeowners by increasing the state's homestead exemption and funneling more money through school districts to reduce the amount of property taxes districts need to collect. Other attempts to direct property tax relief for people who need it most, like an exemption for legacy homeowners, haven't found much traction at the state level. Representative Allison, do you believe that Proposition 4 was an equitable and effective approach, and where does the state go from here?
I think it was a good approach, and we spent a long time getting there. That was one of the priorities coming into the regular session. And finally, in the fourth special session, we passed the property tax bill. It is good. I think it gives some much needed relief for at least 1 year. And that's where we have to be cautious. You know, we increased the homestead exemption to $100,000, additional $10,000 if you're over 65. Did some considerable compression of the school district rates. That's going to provide some additional relief on property tax, plus put additional funding into our schools, and also get some treatment of businesses. I think we need to go back and do more. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be short-lived because the appraisals, I've been screaming for years since I've been there. I've been involved in property tax. I'm on the select committee dealing with sustainable property tax reform. We've got to deal with the appraisal system because as long as the appraisals keep going up, even that homestead exemption is going to dwindle. The city and county, rightfully so, are bragging about not having to increase the tax rate. They haven't had to because the appraisals take care of it. So we'd have to go back and make sure it's sustainable and continue moving. I think the route is more compression, and we're going to have to provide more property tax relief that I think is the consensus of sort of the legislature, and that's the public need, and I think we're going to provide that.
And Mr. LaHood, what do you think are some attainable goals for this in the coming sessions?
Some goals?
Yeah, for property tax relief.
Well, I mean, there's a couple. Well, first and foremost is this. Here is the issue that no one wants to actually admit, right? I firmly believe that if you're paying taxes and the government can take your property, you don't own your property. You're a renter. And so that goes against a fundamental belief about ownership and freedom. But then the flip side of that, and I'm going to take it back to the bill you were talking about, on the flip side of that is how do we balance out raising money for the necessary expenditures of a government. The problem is this, is that one of the issues that needs to be addressed is giving people short-term solutions so we can campaign and then giving real solutions. The surplus is a nice start and it helps, but it's not an actual fix. And so how do we actually fix it? I haven't heard a real solution for that. I mean, no one that I've talked to has come up with a real solution for it, for how to actually address it. That's issue number one. Issue number two is this, is what steps can we take? How do you phrase this the right way? I'm trying to think how to say it, but sorry, I don't waste my time. How can we make some real progress on funding the government, but making sure that we're not lost in the quagmire? One of the issues, sorry, one thing is this. One issue I do want to bring up is this, is that we need to get creative in our ideas, meaning that, you know, there are some ideas where people come into town where we have new movers, relokees that pay a percentage, giving tax breaks when people reach the age. It's a complicated quagmire. Sorry about that.
Yeah, if you have a solution that you wanted to propose, I would give you 20 more seconds to make it.
Yeah. We have to think outside the box, get away from property tax, whether it's a luxury tax, whether it's a sales tax. But funding through property tax is ultimately making us a slave of the government.
I want to move on to your perspectives on immigration. You're both lawyers and know that in many ways this is a federal issue. What would you do? What do you think the state's role should be here, and to what extent should the state pursue solutions that it doesn't have express authority to pursue, even if it means using state resources to defend it in court? We'll start with Mr. Allison.
Well, I've supported the governor on each and every one of his requests for border security. put $6.7 billion in the regular session and the special sessions. I'm on appropriations where that came through. I've been to the border 3 times. I was there recently, about a month ago, with the DPS on a briefing and tour by helicopter and by boats. I had an opportunity to talk on the ground with our guardsmen that are there because I wanted to get their impression. Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing enough? And they said yes, the wall's important, the barricades are important, anything you can do to detain, to delay, to discourage, they want. And I think we're doing that. You know, the frustration I have is with the illegals. When I was there at Eagle Pass, the legal entry points are on the bridges, the 2 bridges. Yet 50 feet under the bridge, to 100 yards down the river, they're coming across illegally. Why? And that's who we need to stop. I think the governor's doing a good job of enforcing that. We passed a very aggressive bill in the 4th session, Senate Bill 4. I was pleased to co-author the House version of that that is very aggressive and calls for arrest and detaining and deporting it back. That's what we need to do. I think we need to push the envelope like the governor's doing and force the federal government to assume their responsibility on immigration.
Mr. LaHood?
Yeah, very briefly. I think it's 2 questions. One, do we have the ability to defend ourselves? Without a doubt. We are endowed by inalienable rights by our Creator, Declaration of Independence. And our founders distrusted the federal government, but endowed or gave them some limited powers. One of those is our defense and our immigration. And what do we do when they betray us? We don't forego that right. So Texas has every right to protect itself because we don't forego our right of self-defense, to protect our property and our citizens. Now, with regards to Senate Bill 4, there's an issue with it because it's not a strong bill. My job is to deconstruct laws and to find flaws in it. Senate Bill 4, which no one talks about, is if someone voluntarily decides to leave, it gets dismissed. The way we combat it is we have to fund some real border force security. 2, we have to actually build an actual barrier. In Eagle Pass, we have freaking shipping containers. That's our national border, shipping containers. Shipping containers. That should disgust us. I don't know about you, I lock my front door. Our border should be no different. Now, the second thing is we have to create enforceable laws that actually have a bite. And then 3, we have to have law enforcement that actually enforces the law. Because right now we have a Soros DA and a Soros-liking sheriff here in Marion County that aren't enforcing any laws. And so it doesn't matter how good the laws in the books are if no one's going to do what is right and enforce it.
Representative Allison, since it's your bill, I'd like to give you 30 seconds to respond to what he said.
Well, I think Senate Bill 4 is being seen as very, very aggressive. And the purpose is to get the illegals back across. So if they go back across willingness, I think that's a very effective means. Beyond that, there's misdemeanor provisions and then there's felony provisions. You know, the felony provisions could carry automatic deportation. So both of them, whether they come across and charged with a misdemeanor or a felony, they're still going to go back across. And I think we need to continue to enforce that for the illegals. You know, we're all from immigrants. We all came here as immigrant families, but we did it the right way. And I think that's all we need to enforce is to make sure they do it the right way, we vet them properly, and go from there. The federal government's got to do a lot of that, but it's our border. Reach the point where I think we have the right to protect our border, and I think we're doing that.
And since we have you here and you're an expert on this bill, the city and county's interpretation was that it's going to rely a lot on them to enforce this, and they put together some cost estimates of what it would cost for them for their law enforcement to enforce this and to keep them in the jail. How is the state going to support cities and states in this endeavor?
Well, I think we're going to look at the original intents, the ones that are coming across illegally at the border. And yeah, there are shipping containers, but on top of the shipping containers, there are concertina wire, and effectively, the border where they're coming out of the bank is very, very steep.
Sorry, different question. How is the state going to support cities and counties that have to enforce this? Are they going to fund this for them? Are they going to provide funding for them to enforce it?
To the cities and counties, no.
No.
No. I think that comes from the provisions in the bill that provide some indemnity and protection for cities and counties and law enforcement. But I think that's an obligation that we're continuing to have to incur, that the federal government needs to step up and protect us, that they're not doing. But I think that's an extreme from the purpose of Senate Bill 4, is to get the illegals as they come across. And I think that there's been a lot of pushback from one side about, well, it's going to cause racial profiling and it's going to have impacts in the larger cities. I don't see that happening.
Is it fair to call it an unfunded mandate for cities and counties?
No, I don't think so at all. Is any law enforcement unfunded by mandate? I think the cities and the counties have local obligations to protect our citizens.
And Mr. LaHood, you, in your law practice, you sometimes represent clients who are undocumented and accused of crimes. How do you square that with your hardline approach to the border and immigration?
Simple. I believe in the Constitution, and that's not a campaign slogan. I believe that our government should always be challenged. You don't take it for granted, and you hold them accountable. That's what my job is. My job is to dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure the government didn't break the law, they did their duty, and they followed the Constitution. When people, kind of insults me when people laugh at things like due process, due course of law, presumption of innocence. I don't know, call me crazy, to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures by our government. That's the reason why our founding fathers started the revolution. There's not a discrepancy. Presumption of innocence is there for a reason. Defense lawyers are here to make sure the government is accountable. And if the facts are there, then someone is found guilty. If they're not, they're not.
Next question. In the past couple of years, our local leaders have been at odds with state leaders on a number of San Antonio specific issues. For example, last year, Governor Abbott vetoed the Ramon Najera Act, which sought to help the city crack down on dangerous dog owners. And the year before that, TxDOT thwarted plans for a multimodal corridor on Broadway. So I'd like to ask you each some individual questions about your relationships with both state and local leaders and how you might approach conflicts between the two. We'll start with Mr. LaHood. If you were elected state representative, your job would include helping city and county leaders address problems at the state level. Could they count on you as a partner, or would you join Abbott and Paxton in trying to assert state authority over local issues?
Well, it's a loaded question, Amit. Yes. Am I here? Do I believe in helping the small business? Without a doubt. Do I believe in sacrificing my principles? Never. The LaHood Act, from what I'm familiar with it, basically continues to over-criminalize which laws are already on the books, right? If I remember correctly, the dog owner was indicted for it. I don't want to over-legislate. Those are things that we talk about, whether it's in business. Do we over-legislate or less? I want less government involvement. Do I want to help facilitate small businesses? Without a doubt. But there's a balancing act. Because here's the problem that I've seen, at least, with elected officials. We stop thinking about what it is we're really doing. We're going off on a slogan, we're going off on a campaign pitch versus the actual side effects of it. On a random note, Augie's Barbecue on Broadway was closed down because the city government did construction right after the COVID pandemic, shut them down because of the construction, and closed out a good business. I mean, our obligation is to our constituents, to helping them thrive. And the way they thrive is letting them operate on their own. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but.
Well, let's circle back. So should local leaders here feel like you would be an ally to them?
Yeah, as long as it's not something that violates, like I said, my principles. Would I veto the LaHood Act? From what I know of it, yes. I do believe I would have supported that.
And Representative Allison, last year you sponsored an unusual bill aimed at requiring Bear County to hire an additional 320 sheriff's deputies. That bill didn't pass, but county commissioners told the San Antonio report.
Can I first address the
Sure.
prior question?
Well, sorry, these are individual questions.
Let me talk about the Broadway corridor because I'm intimately involved in that. And like I used the example earlier, this is where relationships come into play. We had a situation where Broadway is a major thoroughfare, and Broadway runs right through District 121 up through Alamo Heights. TxDOT took the position that that's still TxDOT highway. The city, rightfully so, I think, or understandably, said we passed a bond issue based on an agreement that it would be the city's responsibility to do complete streets. We're going nowhere. I brokered a meeting. My prior service on the B board, I had good relationships with TxDOT. So the TxDOT executive director came down, the engineer, the mayor of Alamo Heights, the mayor of the city of San Antonio, Bruce Bug, had a relationship with the chairman of TxDOT and the engineers from Peyton Dawson. And we sat down and tried to work out an arrangement, an agreement that fit the best way we could. I was primarily concerned with Alamo Heights because they were a secondary agreement participant over a drainage problem, a very serious drainage problem in Alamo Heights. So I think that's the type of cooperation you expect from a representative, to try to broker or try to bring the parties together to work something out. I'm still cautiously optimistic they're going to get there. They're working on proposed plans. It's going to be difficult. They're both saying that they're going to reduce congestion. The city of San Antonio is saying by reducing the lanes. TxDOT saying no, that's going to cause more congestion. By leaving it alone, we're going to reduce congestion. But I think we'll get there.
Okay. I should have been more clear. These are going to be individual questions for each of you. However, we will squeeze any information you have about Broadway if you think that this is still possible. That's interesting to us. So Representative Allison, last year you sponsored an unusual bill aimed at requiring Marion County to hire additional sheriff's deputies. The bill didn't pass, but county commissioners told the San Antonio report they viewed it as you working against them instead of with them on a problem that they also want to solve. Do you feel like you have a good working relationship with city and county leaders right now?
Yes, I think so. I think we work closely with the sheriff's department. You know, there's 400,000 people in the unincorporated areas of Marion County, and the numbers were drastically low, way below the recommended law enforcement percentages of population to number of police officers, sheriff's officers. So I filed a bill, just a local bill, primarily for leverage, to force the Bexar County to increase up to the recognized national law enforcement ratio. Simultaneously with that, Commissioner Grant Moody was working with the other commissioners and with the Sheriff's Department to do the same thing, and we were successful. I was able to pull the bill down. Well, we passed it out of committee, and we just left it in calendars while Grant was successful in getting the Sheriff's Department to agree to increase their numbers. Which I think is important. You know, it's a public safety issue, and that's how we approached it. And I think we've got a good relationship with the commissioners to enforce that. I think we're all going for the same goal, and again, I think that's one of our responsibilities, to work together in partnership and work through issues like that.
And Mr. LaHood, this question is going to be for you. You've spent a lot of time in a courtroom. You know how to review evidence. Last year, the state house that you wish to join reviewed 4,000 pages of evidence, and the majority of, even the Republicans, voted to impeach Attorney General Ken Paxton by a vote of 121 to 23 on articles including bribery and abuse of public trust. How would you have come to a different conclusion?
Well, I wasn't there to see it, but my understanding is this, that Ken Paxton just finished a highly contested, tens of $million re-election campaign. He was challenged by Jeb P. Bush, he was challenged by Guzman, and the voters unequivocally re-elected him. That goes back to voter integrity and voter fraud. I don't care if you don't like somebody, I don't care if you're offended by somebody. You don't take the will and the power of the voter. That's what Democrats do. If you don't like them, you don't elect them. You don't just kick them out of office.
Given the things that turned up in that investigation, do you trust Paxton in that important role for Texas?
I do. I wasn't there for it, but I do. I know this. Yeah.
That is totally false, that we undid an election. There was a detailed 3-month investigation that others knew about, except those on the select committee, that dealt into things far beyond what was developed for years. You know, he's been under indictment for 5 years. That wasn't part of the impeachment. In fact, it was pulled out of the Senate trial. What was part of the impeachment of Bloodall was he wanted the state to pay $3.3 million to cover him for firing 6 very, very good, very conservative, very effective members of his staff. I was on the subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. He came before us to do his dog and pony show about what the Attorney General's office needed. But also on that docket was the $3.3 million. He wouldn't answer a single question from us. And it didn't stop there. Then we were here at the Senate trial, that Jeff Leach, who was chair of the Civil Procedure and Judiciary Committee, or some such title, requested that he come 12 different times, and he wouldn't come. Not once. Yet he has the gall to say, well, I didn't have a chance to tell my story. And then now look what he's doing. Saying, well, I'm going to confess, I'm going to agree to everything in the impeachment proceedings. Where does that put us? Where does that put us?
Well, so to round this out, given the things that turned up in that investigation, do you trust Ken Paxton in this important role for Texas?
No, I don't. I think the people of Texas deserve much better than what he did.
We're going to go back to a question for both candidates now. Representative Allison, your official bio page says that you're a member of St. Mark's Episcopal Church, where you were married and have taught Sunday school. Mr. LaHood, last time you were on the stage, you spoke passionately about your faith as well. I would be curious to hear from each of you, how does your faith inform your approach to public service? Starting with Mr. LaHood.
Yeah, it's simple. I was raised, my parents love God, love my country, love my family, love freedom. As a Christian, I'm Catholic. Those fundamental truths form the fundamental principles that guide my life and guide how I want to raise my family, how I treat my wife, how I treat others, and ultimately what I believe is best for Texas as a whole, right? If we don't have our principles in place, then if we don't have a unified principle in place, then we see the infighting that we have going on right now. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I believe that the discrepancy in the House, the issues going on, is because we have two different groups that are valuing two different principles. And so to answer your question is this: my faith guides how I live my life, and how I live my life and what I believe is guides what I want to try and do in the House. That makes sense?
Yes, that's perfect.
My faith is very, very important to me, but it's also very, very private. And it guides me on a daily basis. You know, and just the bottom line is just to do what's right. That's what I see my teachings being. That's what I try to convey in the children when we taught Sunday school. That's what carried forward. I'm very proud of the bill I passed my first session. The governor signed on character education to instill in our children just be kind, do what's right, be a good citizen, obey the laws, follow the government, respect your peers and elders. And I think that's important. And I think we learn a lot. I think we're going to learn a lot of things that have happened in the past. Some of the acts of violence that have occurred, some of the hatred that's occurred through that character education. That follows my faith walk. That character education provisions that are now embedded in our schools and charter schools, K through 12, is working. And that's important. I think that's important for the future of our country, for the future of our society. How we build our children and teach our children dictates how we're going to survive.
Since you brought this up, I think you're referring to a bill that has been attacked in this election. Would you like to spend 30 seconds explaining that bill?
Yeah, I just kind of kept quiet. It's ridiculous, and it's you know, I don't know where we've gone away from integrity and honesty and attention to detail. That's what this job is about. There's a lot of detail work, and important detail work. I've been accused of indoctrinating children by trying to put woke DEI into the curriculum. That is just absolutely absurd. The bill we're talking about was back, I pre-filed it in 2020. 2020, when there wasn't this woke, ridiculous stuff surfing us at that time. And went on the important word of inclusion as part of the character education. We want to include people, not isolate them or exclude them. But when I saw after we had the hearing, and the hearing, you know, one thing at the House or in the Senate, everything is a record. Everything. Both documented record about what happens on any bill, but also in a hearing in the House, in the committee room, or on the floor of the House. Everything is videotaped. So it's all there if you just look at the details. And when I saw that after we had the hearing, it was anything but any type of wokeness or indoctrination. It was still character education to include people. When I saw that the left, so to speak, wanted to take it into a woke direction, I pulled the bill down voluntarily because I didn't want to have any risk on the character education that we'd established that the governor signed.
I want to move us along now into our lightning round. We have a series of 3 questions that is going to be, I'm going to ask you to do a yes/no answer, and then you're going to get a minute to explain your answer. On both of your campaign websites, securing the Texas-Mexico border is listed as the top priority. Do you think that most voters in House District 121, not just Republican primary voters, but all of them, agree that this is the #1 issue facing your district? Yes, no, and a minute to explain. Can you start with Mr. LaHood?
Yes. It's really simple. It comes down to common sense, not about politics. If we have no border, we have no security, we have no nation. Just like if we don't have walls and a door, we don't have a home. It's literally that simple. You know, in 2016, I thought it was funny because people called me a racist because I wanted to build a wall. I supported that. It made sense to me. It makes sense to me, like I said earlier. Close my door, lock it, find out who's coming over. I don't care whether you're black, white, brown, whether you are Democrat. Applies to all of us. And I do have family and friends in the RGV, down in Webb County, Laredo, all throughout. And they're about as blue as you can get. And guess what? They want the wall built. They do. And so the issue is not the wall. The issue is messaging. Because right now, propaganda is twisting everything. And so to answer your question, yes, #1 priority, and 2, it applies to everybody.
Mr. Allison, I'll repeat the question for you. On your campaign website, securing the Texas-Mexico border is listed as a top priority. Do you think that most voters in House District 121, not most Republican primary voters, but all of them agree that this is the #1 issue facing your district?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and when I've visited around the district, when I sent a survey out with newsletters, when we've done block walking, that is the #1 issue. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, that is the #1 issue. And I think legitimately concerned. Look at the impact we're feeling in San Antonio. We've got a migrant center on San Antonio that's totally out of control. Now a second one that was kept kind of secret at the airport, and they're not staying there. It's causing crime in our areas. It's costing us tremendously. When I was at the border last time, Eagle Pass now has a very nice medical facility, quite large. It was 100% full of immigrants while I was there. So we're denying health care benefits to us, to our citizens. We've got to concentrate on it. We've got to address the problem. The public safety issue, I think, is foremost. That's why I'm pleased. I'm endorsed and supported by every single state and local law enforcement agency. Fleet at the top, San Antonio Police Officers Association.
I gotta get you up on that. To move on to our lightning round, and Mr. Allison, you'll take this one first. This November, this November, one of you will be on the ballot headlined by the U.S. presidential race. It looks like former President Donald Trump is sailing toward renomination on the Republican side. Do you plan to vote for a second Trump presidency? Representative Allison, take that one first.
It's going to depend on who makes it through the process. I think we have a long ways to go.
Sorry, this is a yes/no question, so it has to start with a yes or a no.
If it comes down today between former President Trump and President Biden, particularly what we've seen this last week, yes, I'd vote for President Trump.
Mr. LaHood, I'll repeat the question. This November,
You don't need to repeat it.
Okay.
So, I'm not ashamed of what I believe. I'm not ashamed of what I did. I voted Trump in 2016. I voted in 2020. And I'm voting again. If people don't like that, I respect that. But I'm not going to lie and pussyfoot about it. But the reality is, yes, gladly, I will again.
It's our final of the lightning round. House District 121 has long supported Republicans, but it's also home to many suburban voters who GOP strategists are concerned about keeping in their column. Do you believe that you can make a case for Republican primary voters that will also connect with the general election voter who will be sending you to Austin in November? Yes, no, starting with Mr. Allison.
Yes, I think so.
And you have 1 minute to explain if you would like.
No, I think that's just the reality. I think we have a free opportunity to vote whoever we want to. I think open elections are part of our democracy.
Mr. LaHood?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. When I ran for DA, after the primary, I focused almost exclusively on knocking doors on D5s, D4s, and D3s. And guess what? When we talk to them about what we care about what we have in common, in the DA race, it was about the safety of our children, about making sure that people that commit crimes are held accountable. Those are messages that are beyond a party. Those are truths and those are fears that apply to everyone. And so that same concept applies here. If we're not afraid or ashamed about what we believe, and we have an open conversation with somebody where I can talk to somebody and they can disagree with me, because I had people say, don't waste your time. I've never voted for Republican in my life. And I said, that's fine, let me just talk to you. And I talked. And it showed it worked. We got, I think, 2 points closer. We got the most votes of anyone in Bexar County. Because we, one, got out, talked to people, talked to them like people, and about things that they can relate to. If we do that, it's not going to be an issue.
Okay, we've made it to the end. That was awesome. We covered so much more than I thought we would tonight, and you guys were awesome. No one cheered, no one booed, but I appreciate hearing what issues are important to you. We're going to do some closing statements, starting with Representative Allison. You have 1.5 minutes. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong. Starting with Mr. LaHood, you have 1.5 minutes.
Yeah. This race is about principles. That's simple. People can laugh and they can be rude, but this race is about principles. It's about character. It's about consistency. Right? Whether you agree with me or not, I say what I mean what I say, and if I tell you I'm going to do it, I'm going to do everything in my power to do it. And I believe that if we fire our elected officials for breaking their promise or misleading us, we would have fewer people mislead us. That's it. And so I think I've already hit on the big priorities. The border, which we all agree on. Voter integrity, which I haven't heard much about, but that is the key fundamental. If we don't have faith in our system, if our elections are stolen, if there's no accountability, then we have nothing as a republic. And the only recourse is an armed recourse. The last is freedom, and that's not just a hyperbole. I don't care whether you call it affirmative action, whether you call it CRT, the modernization, which is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or whatever the next version is. Indoctrination doesn't belong in our schools. Period. And we have to empower parents to be citizens and free to make decisions. The government doesn't have the answer for us. I firmly don't believe it, and I firmly believe they don't have the answer for us. So I'm not afraid to fight. I've shown it. I will fight, and I'm humbly asking for your vote. Thank you.
Representative Allison, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
We have a multitude of issues facing us. I've heard about some of them. We have to do more on property tax. We have to do more on education. We have some serious infrastructure needs. Water, energy, broadband, access to internet, healthcare, transportation, public safety. And we need someone who's been there. Not just talk in generalities, but specifics and results. I've been there. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk, and I've proven it. And that's what we need going forward. Someone that gets along with colleagues on both sides of the aisle. One thing I've always liked about the Texas legislature until recently, is the ability to cross down and get things done, unlike Washington. We don't want to be like that. And we get back there. And that's what I bring, that's what I brought. And I'm proud of what I brought back locally. The Alamo. We put $400 million out of appropriations into the Alamo. Beyond that, I carried the bill to provide a law enforcement entity at the Alamo. We were undergoing a lot of damage and crime at the Alamo. I'm proud of that. I brought the police and fire together on a pension plan. Been fighting for years. I carried that bill. Convention center expansion, so important. Not in my district, but I was asked to carry that bill because I knew I could get it done.
That's time. If you'd like to wrap up.
Yes. So I'm asking you to let us continue. Experience matters. Not just words, but a record. I've been there. My opponent hasn't done anything in this community. I've been there and done it. And that experience matters, and it pays off through relationships and knowledge and know-how and ability to get things done that I've shown. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm Angie Marc, the publisher and CEO of the San Antonio Report. Let's give a round of applause to our candidates. We are so grateful for our candidates' time tonight to let you, the voters, hear their ideas, their plans, their positions, and not only just you folks in the audience, but at the San Antonio Report, when we have political debates, we live stream these events so that as many folks as possible who live in District 121 or whatever debate we're doing can hear from the candidates. It is at the very core of our mission, civic engagement. And we thank you. I know many of you are supporters and subscribers of our work, but just one quick thing before we part for the evening. It's so special to be here specifically tonight because tomorrow marks our 12th birthday. 12 years ago tomorrow, we published our first article, and since that time, we have grown to be your source of local news. Thank you also, Andrea, for your work tonight and preparing. And along with Andrea, there are 7 other reporters that cover local news for San Antonio. So, you know, it's our 12th birthday. Tomorrow, if you wanted to just hop online and maybe donate $12 a month to support our work and our civic engagement work, we would appreciate it. Y'all have a good, safe night.